Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Women Connected in Wisdom. We are episode 230. Today, we're talking about physical wellness and the gut everything connection with Dyna Vink. And I can't wait to dive in. But before I do that, I should probably do my intro and get all that kicked off. Today, I am soloing, which is very unusual. But I'm excited to be with you. And if you're out there listening, make sure you know you can put in questions or comments and we'll answer them with you since we are live at the moment. And if you're listening afterwards, that you can check out our comments on social media, or you can also send us a note and connect with us. So, hi, y'all. I'm Christine Gautreaux, a white social justice advocate. I'm an international speaker, coach, best-selling author, and publisher, and a dancing social worker who helps you upgrade yourself and community care. And every week, this podcast gets together. We're rooted in the 8 dimensions of wellness, and we like to get together with intentional guests for conversations about how to be wise in business, relationships, and wellness. Like, how do we do this? And so today, last week, we had a conversation about physical wellness with a functional medicine doctor. And our guest today is along the same lines. So I'm really excited to continue this conversation about our physical wellness and how do we do this. So, according to Women Connected in Wisdom, physical wellness is the ability to maintain a quality of life that allows you to thrive in your daily activities without undue fatigue or physical stress. Physical wellness recognizes that our daily chores too, y'all. Can I even talk today? Recognizes that our daily choices, habits, and behaviors have an impact on our overall health, well being, and quality of life. Our guest today, I'm so excited to introduce y'all to her. Our guest today is Dyna Vink, and I am going to get in here. Let me make sure I've got the right thing to say her bio. I had it all up for y'all. Y'all know me doing this by myself is not normal. So here we go. Dyna Vink is a certified integrative health practitioner and the founder of Holistic Nutrition Lifestyle. She helps women navigate the often misunderstood transition of perimenopause by identifying the root causes behind symptoms that are too often dismissed as just aging. After experiencing fragmented care and unhelpful lab results herself, Dyna turned to functional medicine testing to uncover imbalances traditional approaches overlook. I can't wait to talk more about this with her. Through targeted nutrition, movement, mindset, and lifestyle changes, she restored her energy and professional confidence. Now she empowers other women to do the same, offering clear, science backed guidance to help them take control of their health, cut through confusion, and thrive through midlife and beyond. So, y'all, help me welcome to the stage Dyna Vink. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hey, Christine, great to be here. Thanks for
I am
having me.
so glad you're here, and I am so delighted. I don't know if you got a chance to listen to last week's show, but we were right on this subject. We were
Mhm.
talking about women's health and functional medicine, and it feels like a continuation, and I love that because all our guests are experts, and but they all have their little niches and the way they approach it. So first, let me ask you, Dinah, how did you get into this? How did you become an integrative health practitioner?
Well, I was practicing kind of health coaching on the basis of what I would call best practices and lifestyle methods. And that's all well and good. But I thought, okay, there are a lot of people that do this. Is there something else that I can offer? Something more science based, something that's really lacking from traditional medicine. And when I came across functional medicine testing, I was sold. I mean, hook, line, and sinker. That just made such good sense to me. So what functional medicine has done is to prepare these tests that look at markers that don't exist in traditional practice. They're just overlooked. They're testing for illness rather than testing for health, right? Which is a really different perspective. And so when I found out about that, I said, I need to get certified in that. I need to do that first to myself, and then I can share it with my clients. And so that's how I got into it.
I love that for you. And I have so many questions because I'm so curious, right? Because right now, and I don't know if it's just my feed because my phone has heard me talk to it or what I've looked up, but I get ads all the time for functional medicine testing. Like, and
Wow.
so I can't wait to hear your recommendations of how do you do that? What are you looking for? Like, because just because you see it on the internet doesn't mean it's good.
No.
So if our listeners are listening to this and say, where do you start when you think about functional medicine testing? How would you start?
Well, I guess I first determine whether functional medicine testing is needed, right? And so usually the answer lies in a certain frustration by the client that they've been dismissed by their traditional doctor, that the symptoms that are starting to impact their quality of life are just simply attributed to age, or, just get used to it kind of thing, which is, in my opinion, that's just not responsible. That's not good enough. And especially as we live longer and longer, and particularly women who have this problem of not being heard in the medical system, at a much larger rate than men. And women have huge responsibilities, right? They are not only caring for themselves, they tend to be caring for everyone around them, whether it's at home or at work, or, parents or whatever. They need a good quality of life in order to maintain, keep all these balls in the air. So when women come to me and they have, this list, often it's a laundry list of seemingly unconnected problems, issues, symptoms, then I say, okay, well, it looks like I can help you with that. If they just have one thing and they say, oh, I don't really sleep that well, everything else is fine, then, I'm probably not for them. But yeah, so it's a bunch of unanswered symptoms that have been allowed to fester for probably years, and that are starting to build up and cause concern.
Can you name some of the symptoms that some of your clients come to you with? So if our listeners might recognize themselves.
Sure. So, like brain fog is a really popular one.
Mm-hmm.
Mood swings is a big one, and you don't understand where this frustration suddenly came from. This bit whole on frustration. You think like, oh, I'm usually pretty level headed. Where is this coming from? There can be things like muscle aches and pains that prevent them from being, much more active. There's this chronic fatigue that goes on, that they don't really know what to do with. There would be a lot of gut issues, which present as, say, bloating or irregular bowel movements, or just not feeling right. So there, a lot of different things. Hot flashes is sort of traditional. Yeah, we put that in there, but there are a lot of different symptoms that that can present strangely. So yeah, and they can be a lot of different things,
Mm-hmm.
which general medicine just doesn't really look at. So HRT, for example, is something that a lot of women are talking about, and HRT is fine, but it can address a certain kind of problem, and not the laundry list that I've just described, right?
Right.
So I don't, I mean, I'm happy to work with people who are taking HRT, but it's not something, of course, that I prescribe.
Mm-hmm.
And there are many women that can deal with these symptoms without using HRT. So, so it's not a necessary player at the party, and it provides an alternative, which is really good for women who don't want to take HRT either for personal reasons or for health reasons.
Right. Well, I noticed in your bio, you talked about that you look at targeted nutrition, movement, mindset, and lifestyle changes.
Mm-hmm.
So when you got into this, what did you feel like made the most difference for you?
Uh, um, well, in some cases, I had come to expect. I had become so used to it that I wasn't even sure it was even an issue anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a certain amount of brain fog, memory. I started forgetting adjectives, which is very inconvenient. I had rosacea all over my face, which I'd had that since my 30s. So I kind of
And that's
accepted that.
tied, what's that tied to? Because I definitely have some of that. I know. What's that tied to?
Well, it could be different things. For me, it was heavy metals.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And so it could be food sensitivity, but it could also be a gut issue. But in my case, it was heavy metals. So, it took,
And you test for that.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And so other things, I had this frustration thing, like what the heck is going on?
Mhm.
I had body pain, and I was very active. I used to ride my bicycle. Well, what's 7,000 kilometers, 5,000 miles a year, kind of thing, and that's in the half year that you can ride your bike.
Right.
Um, so that I was active, but it was this strange, like, why am I feeling so sore if I'm so regularly active? And then I had gut issues too, where I wasn't sure what I could eat anymore without getting them. It seemed like anything I ate caused gut issues, and that turned out to be candida, which is very common.
Right.
And I also had parasites, which is something like 70% of North Americans have these things, but the general medical system only considers it if you've been to a tropical place. And
Isn't that fascinating?
yeah, so you don't want to not think of that, because it can be just such a game changer to get rid of parasites. And using the approach that I incorporate rather than pharmaceuticals has some very large benefits, right? Because your gut gets pretty badly affected when you use pharmaceuticals. So then you have this whole repopulation period and whatnot, and you feel terrible, and so you can skip all that. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, there are a lot of different ailments that present that are seemingly unrelated, that that are very common, and people just kind of accept that after a while. They just say, oh well, this is how it's going to be.
Right. And we don't have to accept that.
No.
Like, we can really have the conversations and figure out, can we address this?
Yeah.
So you start with, is it needed? So if there's a laundry list of things, so say we've got two or three or four, and you
Hmm.
would say, okay, so we're going to test. So
Yeah.
when you do a functional medicine test, what are you looking for?
Well, we have something called the Big Five. So
Okay.
they're a set of 5 tests that give a pretty comprehensive view of what's going on. And I recommend that. If people for some reason can't do that, then we can start smaller. But the ideal approach is to do the 5 tests, and they are looking at different kinds of like different areas in the body, right? So like with the stress, mood, and metabolism test, for example, there are 2 samples that are taken. One is saliva, which is pretty cool, and that looks for cortisol levels.
Mhm.
So if you've got if your cortisol is running not according to the way it's supposed to. It's supposed to be high in the morning and then basically drop down over the day. Well, it's very common that cortisol does exactly the opposite. It starts low in the day and low in the morning, and it goes up. And of course, when you have high cortisol, then your sleep is bad. Then you have a lot of stress, and you have anxiety, and you're tense, and so a lot of side issues. If you're overweight, you will not lose weight with that cortisol imbalance. So that's what the saliva test does. And there's also
Can
a
I ask
blood.
though, before we go on to the next test, can I ask what's usually the root cause of high cortisol? Because you hear about like high stress and reduce your stress, and for a lot of our listeners, they're like, yeah, that's great, and I'm caring for this person, and the reality of me reducing stress at this moment is not, it's not going to completely go away. So
No.
is stress the root cause of the cortisol, or is there something underlying that?
Well, it's a hormone, and if your
Okay.
hormones are generally imbalanced, then your cortisol doesn't have a hope of being,
Okay.
well balanced. So it's one of the sequence that can be out of balance. So
Okay.
it's a hormonal issue for sure, but it's triggered by stress.
Okay. All right. Great.
And what we want to do is look at what's positive stress and what's negative stress, right? And have outlets to get rid of that negative stress, whether, go swimming or go running or do boxing or something to kind of relieve that stress is fantastic.
I love that.
Or weightlifting even. Yeah. So, yeah.
All right. Second test.
Well, we haven't finished the first one yet. It's there's also a blood spot test.
Okay.
And there we're looking at thyroid issues in particular. Thyroid and insulin, that kind of thing, to see what whether there's anything out of the norm there. And a lot of women tend to have thyroid issues that they have not been diagnosed before, because the general tests only take 2 markers and we take 4.
Okay.
So, what may have seemed normal is may not be normal.
Okay.
Yeah. So then the second test is the Candida test. And for that, we use urine. So we're looking for Candida, for yeast, for fungus, mold, bacteria, that kind of thing. And so we can tell a lot about what's going on, particularly with the gut. With those, with that test. So that's really helpful. We also have a food sensitivity test. And this, I know there are different ways of testing it, but what we use is a blood spot test. And it screens for over 190 different food sensitivities. Now, this is different than an allergy. Okay. Allergies happen within 5 minutes to half an hour kind of thing. They're pretty fast. And they can be seriously bad for your health, right? So like peanut allergies, for instance, people can die from that. But these are food sensitivities that tend to take up to, say, 3 days to actually manifest. So by that time, you're not relating what you're, the kind of reaction that you're having with what you ate. So it's very difficult to make these connections unless you're doing a really concerted test and monitoring everything you eat and whatnot. So this blood spot testing can really help with that by going through a large number of different foods. And of course, the challenge is that it leads to a lot of inflammation, and that inflammation can cause all sorts of problems. Inflammation is a leading forerunner for a number of different diseases that we don't want. So keeping that under control is really important. And of course, it makes us feel better, right? Because there could be some brain fog attached to that. There could be mood issues attached to that. There could be digestive issues attached to that. So it's a really good one to figure out. And then we have the minerals and metals test. So this is where heavy metal is discovered. And how do you think we find that? It's a hair sample.
Hair sample. Okay, that makes sense to me.
Yep. So what we're looking there is for mineral levels, heavy metal exposure, especially to things like lead, cadmium, arsenic, mercury, and aluminum.
I have been following this gal on Instagram that tests for lead in major box stores because
Yeah,
their child had got lead poisoned,
yeah.
and they're very passionate about going into places that a lot of us shop and doing a lead test. And I'm shocked at how much we're exposed to lead and have no idea.
It's a crazy one, right? It's
Hmm.
yeah. So it's with aluminum, you can change your deodorant, for example, and you can reduce
Hmm.
your exposure
Hmm.
enormously. Um, yeah. So it's crazy where we pick all this stuff up, but it can have some, and especially if you're, sort of over 40, over 50, then you've had time to accumulate all these heavy metals. So
Right.
it may not just be from one thing. It could be a number of things that, that have that effect on us. So
And do they mostly stay in our bodies unless we do a specific cleanse for them?
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, they're very happy to stay there. And unless they're coaxed out, they will stay. Yes.
Right. And what does a cleanse for heavy metals usually look like? Is it herbs or
Yep. Yeah,
okay.
it's herbs, and then there's a binder. So with
Okay.
any of the detoxes that we do, we use a charcoal and clay combination as a
Okay.
binder, which grabs onto whatever toxins we're trying to get rid of, and helps it leave the body so that it doesn't just go somewhere else and sit.
Right. Oh, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. And then the last test is the omega-3 test, which is partly inflammation. So that's also a blood spot test. And that especially measures the omega-6s to the omega-3 ratio,
Okay.
which is usually very out of balance.
Okay.
Usually there are way too many omega-6s and not enough omega-3. So when that is out of balance, then you have usually a high inflammation score. So that's and it's particularly influenced on your heart. So just taking omega-3 can have just a massive impact on heart
Hmm.
health, which is really important for people to know.
Well, here's what I love about this, Dinah, is it really sounds like you, if you know what you're looking at, you
Mm,
can make a difference.
yes.
Pretty,
And
pretty, like it's like a tweak. To
yeah,
me, it's like a
exactly.
okay, you may, you don't have a huge diagnosis, or you may, but you come in, things are just a little off, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, so let's look at all the numbers and let's tweak it
Yeah.
and see what works for your body.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So you know exactly what's out of balance, and then you know what to do in order to restore that balance. So it's very targeted. You don't have to make guesses about, all these things that it could be because one symptom could be caused from, different things.
I love it.
So
So
yeah.
how do people access this testing? Do they do it through your company, Holistic Nutrition Lifestyle? Like how does it work?
Yeah. So so women would call me, and we would find out whether they are in fact a good candidate for functional medicine testing, and then I would give them an entrance survey. So they would go through this fairly detailed questionnaires to
Mhm.
find out what sort of symptoms they might have, and this is really key because of a lot of things that we just internalize as being normal,
Right.
right? And it doesn't, often cases it's not. So when you're able to put certain things together, then you can say, okay, I can start to see a pattern here. And then I can recommend, maybe there's only one test that I think
Mhm.
would be important. Usually it's five.
Okay.
That gives you the really full picture of what's
Right.
happening. But yeah, so that's how it works. And then what we do is we have a intake discussion about the survey that they've done to sort of refine all the information. And then I make a recommendation. Usually that starts with a detox. And this is a detox primarily of the liver. And this is so important because as we age, sadly, our liver gets smaller.
Mm, I
And
didn't know that.
yes, so it's smaller and it has the same or even more work to do because as we're, going through perimenopause and menopause, we have more hormones that need to be cycled through
Okay.
that we didn't have when we were younger. And so that can be something that clogs up the liver, and also any kind of toxin. It could be from from fast food, from food choices. It could be from seed oils, which are really clogging, as opposed to say olive oil, right?
Hmm.
And or avocado oil is terrific as well. But these seed oils really do a bad job of clogging up. So what we want to do is we want to open up those pathways so that once we do the detoxes, it can actually get out, right? It's like a sink. If the sink
Okay.
is plugged, you can't drain anything out of it.
Okay. Okay.
So
That makes sense to me.
so the whole idea behind the detox is to open those pathways so that once we get into the actual protocols, we haven't seen the test results yet, right? So we don't know exactly what's wrong,
Hmm.
but this is a good prep to get ready for what's to come. And then once the test results come back, then we talk about that, and then we determine what kind of tests are going to be done. The tests are all administered at the client's home, which is super fantastic. You don't have to find some specialist, somewhere in a distant part of the city or another city. So they're all done at home, and then you can send them off by courier to the lab, and it takes 3 to 4 weeks to get that all processed. And then we discuss the results of those tests. So that's pretty good, and then put in place the actual protocols of how we're going to deal with this issue, with the different areas that have been out of balance. And so then we meet every 2 weeks and talk about, okay, what's happening? What do you see? What's
Hmm.
anything concerning you? Is there something mysterious, or have you seen unexpected things happen? That kind of thing. And so that, we work through it together, and it takes about 4 months.
Okay. I
And
was
then
going to ask
after,
that question. Like,
yeah,
okay.
from start to finish, about 4 months, and then we determine whether there's another test that we want to do to see whether everything has been resolved. Maybe it's one test, maybe it's two tests. It probably won't be five, but it'll be some number of tests to see whether things are improved. And sometimes we haven't finished, right? Sometimes there's still more work to do. There's still more to detox, and the body is shifting, right? So if you remove some of these toxins over here, some other things might sort of
Might pop up and say, "Hey, me next, me
that's right.
next."
That's exactly what happens. So yeah,
Well,
and
Dinah, how much do these tests usually run? Like, is it separate from your package or is it included in your working with you?
yeah, so the 5 tests are about $1,600.
Okay.
And then yeah, I usually have that separate from my fee because I don't know how many tests they're going to be, right? So
Right.
so yeah, I could include it in the price, but that just assumes that everyone's going to get 5 tests.
Right.
Yeah.
And everybody may not need that. Well, and I'm guessing these tests aren't covered by insurance, especially in the United States.
Probably not. There might
Okay.
be some insurances that cover it, but probably not. Yeah.
Right. It's sad to me. Like, especially if we have tests that can give us answers, especially as
Yeah.
women. It's like,
Yeah.
because that can be a barrier, right?
Yeah.
It can be a
Yeah.
barrier to health.
Yeah.
If you're listening and you're like, okay, well, Christine, I don't have $1,600, so I couldn't do all 5 tests. When in your expertise, is it depending on the individual person, or is there one that you're always like, start with this one?
Well, usually for women, it's the stress, mood, and metabolism test that I recommend.
Hmm.
If there's only one to do, that's probably it, because it's the one with the hormones.
Right.
And for women, the hormones are often, just a mess. So yeah, so that would be
A
the
good
number
place to
one.
start.
But the gut health part is so key.
Right.
It's like the second brain in the body. So it's hard to just say one, because
Oh,
they're,
absolutely.
yeah.
I'm just thinking about this, Dinah. So it was probably 15 years ago that I went gluten free.
Hmm.
And because it was kind of, I didn't have tests, I just was miserable and I needed something to change. And I did an elimination diet. I started with my gut and I took out gluten and slept through the night for the first time in
Mm.
20 something years because I was
Yeah.
blaming it on the kids, the dog, the cat, all that. But what it was my body was waking me up trying to get
Yeah.
rid of stuff. And
Yeah.
so when I did that, like I shifted. But what I'm realizing, even as we have this conversation, like I probably need to do all these tests because there's little things that are just not quite that I like. If like even the rosacea, I'm like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that in a while, but I could probably do something about that. And I just think about it as normal,
Yeah.
right? So it's fascinating to me when you said that about the food sensitivities because I know I have a huge amount of food sensitivities, but I've just kind of bumped along and figured
Yeah.
it out myself and I'm like, "Oh, nope, don't do that." And if you're really tired and stressed, you can't eat that because, my body is like a sensitive instrument. It's like, okay, if you're well resourced and you can have more things than if you're not. Because if you're not, if you're running on empty, whoa, like there's things you cannot have. So, but that's just been trial and error myself, right? Not
Yeah.
working with somebody. So I see the value in working with somebody like yourself who has this expertise and can be like, oh, okay, let's look at this and let's go by the numbers versus just out here blindly bumping into things.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And it's kind of strange that, um, that the healthcare has developed into such a sophisticated enterprise, but that it leaves out so many things. So it's fantastic if you go and you break your arm, or if you're in a car crash and you have to get patched up, or
Right.
fantastic. But when it comes to some of these metabolic issues, and certainly anything to do with nutrition, um, they're not there. They just leave you on your own.
Well, and the beauty industry and the fashion industry is such a whole thing, especially here in the, northern United States. Like we're just North America in the United States. It's like I years ago, and I've quoted on the podcast before because it made such an impact into my thinking. I was in graduate school and I was introduced to a book called Can't Buy Me Love. And was it Jean Houston? I'd have to go back and look. But it was basically how North America is one of the only places that they sell us things that we don't need, and it's all about looking good but it's not the underlying health. It's not like what's good for us. It's a whole industry in itself. So I
Mhm.
think about that when I think about what you're saying about our nutrition, right? Because so many times there's diets and there's you got to look this way or that way. And we all know, especially those of us that lived on this planet a little bit, like, that's not always what's good for you, right? It's the latest fad diet is not necessarily a good thing. So, Dinah, how do you eat as a functional medicine and somebody who's paying attention to nutrition? What do you do?
Well, I basically follow a Mediterranean diet. So there are lots of fruits and vegetables. There's call it better grain and better quality proteins. Lots of protein, very important for women. And then of course the oils, right? Avocado or olive oil are what I use, cold pressed. So that makes a big difference in how I feel. I know that because when I go away for a few days and I don't have control over my food, I notice the difference.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
my body loves a Mediterranean diet. Like my
Yeah.
body is thrilled and just thrives on it.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's ranked one of the number one, if not the
Mhm.
number one. So that makes sense
Yeah.
to me,
Yeah.
right? And it's more of
It's
a
not a,
lifestyle. Yeah,
yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. And calling it a diet is like that could be a triggering word.
right.
It's more of a way of eating, and it's yeah. And I tend to keep away from dairy as well because dairy and wheat are very inflammatory, and so
Mhm.
that's not something that I have very often. Every once in a while, there's a birthday cake in somewhere, and okay, I'll have a piece of cake, but then afterwards I feel it.
Whew.
Yeah, I can feel it in my digestive system, and I probably won't sleep as well that night. So
Mhm.
there's a cost to this, and once you find that out, that is such useful information, because otherwise it's seen as just an inconvenience, to make these changes. But if you actually understand, okay, there's a consequence to not doing this, and yeah, it's you can just choose what you want, how you want your life to be.
What I found fascinating, because I've probably been gluten free 15 years or longer, because it was such a dramatic shift for me that I was like, absolutely worth it. And it was back before there were a lot of products that were gluten free. It was back before it was, you pretty much gave up bread and pastas and everything. And everybody's like, wait, what are you doing? And I'm like, I feel so much better that it's
Yeah.
worth it. And occasionally I'll get glutened because of the world we live in, and if I'm traveling or something like that. And what
Yeah.
I found fascinating, not just my sleep, but I have very good emotional regulation. I'm trained as a clinical therapist. It's pretty much my temperament, but it is always fascinating to me when I get glutened how my mood, like
Hmm.
I have to pay attention because
Yeah.
all of a sudden I'm having mood swings. I'm like, what in the world?
Yeah.
And it's like, it is directly related to the food that I eat. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, that's good to note, right?
Yeah.
And my body's highly sensitive to nightshades too, but it
Hmm.
also depends on where I'm at. Where I'm at before I was menopausal, where I was at in my cycle, but also where I was at energy, like where I was at, how much sleep I was getting, like all the things. That's one of the things that I can have a little sometimes, but
Hmm.
never can have a lot. Like I was years ago, it was so sweet. I was doing a Whole 30, and I was doing, that's the diet where you're no carbs, you can have fruit, you can have vegetables, but you don't do beans. And my friend, I went over to their house and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I made you this dip because I know you're doing this." And it was eggplant, tomato, and peppers, and it was
Oh,
delicious.
nightshades.
It
Yeah.
was delicious. This is when I found out I had a problem with nightshades. I was sick for 3 days. And it was everything I was quote unquote able to eat. My body was like, no, ma'am, like that was too much. And that's when I discovered, oh, nightshades are a thing, and learned about nightshades and learned. And, it's so fascinating because our bodies are so different. And
Yeah.
that checking in and really noticing your body and what
Yeah.
is your body like. I have a good friend that can't do potatoes, and my body, I think it's my Irish ancestors, but I'm fine with potatoes. Like now I can't do as much tomatoes or eggplants, and it's so fascinating.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, also fascinating is, if you go to Europe, then the whole gluten thing becomes a very different discussion.
It really
Um,
does.
so the foods are quite different in Europe than they are in the U.S. So for people who travel to Europe, that would be something to note, or if you have family that lives there, then you can have a discussion about it. But
Right.
big
My
differences.
youngest child studied over in the Netherlands about, has it been 2 years? It's been at least a year and a half, 2 years. Yeah, well, it's actually been 2 years. And I went over to visit for their birthday. And everybody had told me this, right? But I was very nervous because I'm traveling. So I'm like, do I want to introduce something that's going to wreck me? But I did try a little bit and I was okay. and that was fascinating to me. I
Mhm.
wasn't really willing to go hog wild because I didn't want to wreck my trip, but it was fascinating to notice, okay, yeah, this thing about different ingredients, the different ways our foods are processed, the
Yeah.
more holistic they are, like how big of a difference it makes. It's
Mhm.
powerful. Because I
Yeah.
know you're not in the United States right now. So
No.
how is that for your nutrition and your everyday lifestyle?
There's not a lot of processed food here. I'm in Panama, and there's some imported foods from the United States, some food that's processed, but it's very expensive, and it's only at the Costco equivalent for by and large. So you have to go out of your way to find it.
Right.
Um, so here, I'm living in the call it the bread basket, the pantry basket of the country, where a lot of fruits and vegetables are grown. So here, the only thing I worry about is pesticides.
Ah, okay.
So there, I'm not out of the woods, but I'm at least without a lot of problems and issues here. But even here, I don't go crazy on the bread. Like
Mhm.
if I'm out, I might have a little bit with a meal or at a friend's or something. But I generally steer clear of it, and pasta as well, just because I don't want to. I'm used to it.
Right. Right.
It's it's a habit, and I follow that. So.
Well, and if you have good fruits and vegetables, like I was raised on a small farm in Texas, and really well grown organic vegetables and
Hmm.
think fruits that, we were kids and we would be outside playing all day, but part of it was because we had fruit trees, and so if we were hungry, we'd pick what we needed to eat. And you were we were able to do that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
it is different for most people nowadays, and it's a different experience. But and I know they probably get tired of us saying fruits and vegetables and things like that, but farmers markets right now are just, we're in the summer here in North America, and farmers markets and those fresh produce, and I had a salad Monday that it was so delightful because it was so fresh. Like you were just like, oh my gosh, there's such a difference. And it was just amazing. But
Mhm.
so when you are working with somebody, what is your, like, I know you're a very holistic practitioner. Any advice, anything that you're like, this feels like such a silly question to me because we're 8 dimensions of wellness and we know they all weave together, right? And it feels the same for the work you do. Like it all weaves together.
Mhm.
I know I haven't had a question come out of it. I think I
Not
just
yet.
want your wisdom. I think I want, what wisdom do you want to share with our audience
Yeah.
about this?
Well, I think one of the big things for this kind of work to really stick is that there's a mindset piece.
Mm,
And part of that is living in the moment and understanding that only joy and learning really happens in the moment. You can't have it, you know, in the future. You can't have that in the past. And to be able to determine what people want from their lives. It's a simple exercise, but it's overlooked by so many people. And to have some kind of a north star, to have a journey, a destination, to say, okay, I watched my mother descend into dementia for 18 years. And to struggle with that, I don't want that for me, and I don't want that for the people around me. So what am I going to do to avoid that? And maybe somebody who's struggling with osteoporosis, to say, okay, I see that struggle. That's something that I want to avoid. Right. So there may be some things, some kind of milestones, some gateposts that stand out as being important. Maybe they want to have the focus, the determination, and the energy to tackle a new venture,
Mhm.
like a podcast, like writing a book, right?
Right.
Like undertaking very focused travel, like for archaeology or for some particular, hobby or desire. Maybe they want to
When I
start.
turned 40, I did my first triathlon. Like,
Yeah,
it was I wanted to always do it, and that
yeah,
it was actually, now that I think about it, that was probably around the time that I was going gluten-free, I was getting more energy, I was paying attention to this in
yeah,
my life.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, you want to determine what are those bucket list items, and then to set your mind to do them, and with a healthy body and a healthy mind, right? Because the of course, this doesn't all it's not all body, right? It all affects
Mhm.
your
Right.
mind and your
And our
your focus
spirits
and your
and
clarity and whatnot. Yeah, and so that's usually a really important component of it. And often women have never been really asked that before. And when I bring that up and we have some discussions about it, it's usually kind of well a short conversation because they haven't put a lot of thought into it. And then when we come back to it, it's, yeah, I've been thinking about that. And it's very empowering. It's very empowering to be able to
well, and to
make
have a
those.
goal, right? Because I can only imagine, Dinah, like, I am so blessed because I've been a part of a women's community since I was introduced when I was 24, and most of them are 30 years older than I am. And so, like, they kind of are my guiding lights for where we go. And what's one of my co-authors, Dr. Sheila K. Collins, is 86 and outdances me, outworks me. Like, she is my inspiration for so
Yeah,
many things, right? But
yeah,
if you don't have that in your life, or
yeah,
you have an example of people going and sitting on the couch at 60 years old and that's it. Like,
yeah,
I think I so value what you're saying about mindset and what are you
yeah,
dreaming of and what is possible, right? Because if
yeah,
you don't know it's possible, that's another thing.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, and just being given the opportunity to think bigger, and
Mhm.
to make some decisions about what you want your older age to look like. What do you want to do? And because if you don't take some measures, quite likely you won't be able to do it. Is living the standard North American lifestyle.
Right.
It's not that healthy.
That's for
So
sure. Because
yeah,
we work too much, we sit too much, we're on our devices too much, all the things that are too muchness over here right now.
well,
So,
and the food choices are often pretty challenging. So, and
absolutely. And
and the
sometimes
medical system doesn't support health. So
and a
um,
lot of times, depending on what neighborhood you live in, you don't have a choice, right? That's
right.
the thing is, and so, I mean, thank goodness we're kind of seeing some trends of going back to our kitchen gardens and growing food and sharing with our neighbors. That's how I was raised, and I love that. It's like, okay, I'm not good at this, but I'm good at this. Can you do this one, right? And the trading of things and relying on each other too about how do we do this? So I am
Hmm.
so enjoying our conversation and I'm paying attention to time. So I want to make sure that we do a wisdom in action. And wisdom in action, Dinah, is where, we're talking about all these great resources for our listeners and for how to do this. But what about you this week? What are you doing for yourself? What's your wisdom in action for your physical wellness this week?
Well, so this week is not unlike other weeks, but I wake up and I do a breathing meditation for about 10 minutes. Then I do a Pilates exercise for about 20-25 minutes. And then I go out on at least 1 hour walk. And I have friends in the neighborhood that 7 dogs. And they find me as soon as I come out of the door. Oh, there she is. And they race over, and then we walk around for an hour.
Mhm.
And then I come back and make myself usually it's a smoothie or some sort of egg concoction, whatever, for breakfast, and that sets me up for my day really nicely.
Ah,
That's
that's beautiful morning routine. I
hmm
love that. This week, I am focused on the water because I just had my birthday on Monday and I am definitely a water baby. And I started Monday at Niagara Falls. I was doing a conference for somatic dance and performance. And so I was flying out of Buffalo to back to Atlanta and I started at Niagara Falls and then I ended the day in the swimming pool, in the neighborhood swimming pool, and it's a saltwater pool and it's just delightful. So for my physical wellness, as much as I can, because I'm in hot Atlanta and it really is hot and muggy right now because we are coming into it's coming into June, 1st of July. Ugh. And so how is Panama? Is it like that too?
Well, down at the coast, it's pretty hot. Yeah,
Okay.
it'll. So if I drive about 35 kilometers or 20 miles or so down the hill to David, then it'll be 100 degrees or, between 90 and 100 degrees pretty much every day. I mean, seasons matter if it rains or not. It's the rainy season now, so there's more shade. But up here, it's lovely. It'll be like 70 degrees, 75. It might go up to 80, and
Oh, that's
so
beautiful.
yeah. And so first thing in the morning, it's still nice and cool. Sun doesn't come up till about 6:30. So yeah, so I take advantage of that, and yeah, that's one of the reasons I selected to live here was because of that climate. And it turns out that the people that live here are pretty great too. So
Oh,
that's
that's fabulous. That is
mm,
so fabulous. Well, if somebody wants to work with you, I've been running your website, holisticnutritionlifestyle.com, along the bottom for folks who will be watching this on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook. But is that the best way? Will you say what's the best way for somebody to connect with you?
yeah. So the best way is to go to my website to holisticnutritionlifestyle.com. And there's information to read there about what I offer and why. And there's also a button to click to make an appointment on the phone or Zoom or whatever.
Mhm.
And so then we can have a conversation to see what you're interested in and to see whether it's a good fit, whether we think we can work well together, and then we would carry on. So that's basically the how to get in touch with me.
So simple. I love that. And you can work with somebody anywhere in the world, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
I love that because we have listeners from all over the world. So I think that is delightful. Dinah, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom and sharing your knowledge and just answering all my questions or non questions, as some of them were. Um, I am really grateful to be connected to you and I'm really appreciative of your work in the world.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed this, and yeah, I hope that this has helped some of the listeners to give them another option to think about. That that there is something out there, and I think it ties in very nicely with the speaker you had last week.
Right? Well, and just more knowledge and more like how do we do this and what does it mean? Because for some of our listeners, it's the first time they're hearing about functional medicine.
Yeah,
And I was actually just having a conversation with a friend the other day that said, "Have you heard about?" I was like, "Yes, I just had a guest on," and she's like, "I'm really feeling like this." I was like, "It's so
yeah.
interesting how things bubble up." And sometimes I always say, for me, if it bubbles up 3 times, I need to be paying attention, and it's really bubbling up, so I'm really needing to pay attention to not just for my listeners, but for myself, like, okay.
Mhm.
And right before and I know we gotta go in just a second, but right before the show, we talked about, I ignored a lot of stuff when I was in perimenopause, and you said it's not too late.
Mhm. That's right.
So, if you're still having symptoms from perimenopause or menopause, it's not
Mhm.
too late to check it out,
That's
and
right. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I focus on perimenopause because that's when a lot of the change happens, and women are going like, "What is going
What the
on?"
heck,
Uh,
right?
but
Yeah.
yeah, but of course, if some things resolve by menopause and other things do not, other things get worse. So yeah, so it's certainly not too late, and using these functional medicine tests, we can really uncover some very pinpointed issues and get at them. So yeah.
Oh, Dinah, thank you, thank you, thank you. Y'all, all this will be in our show notes. So if you're driving, if you're running, if you're taking care of the kiddos, don't worry about it. Go to womenconnectedinwisdom.com. You'll be able to get the show notes. You'll be able to connect with Dinah. And thank you so much. And until next time, Dinah, we're just so appreciative to be connected. So thank you, thank you. All right, y'all. That was awesome. I always have so many more questions, but we've got to wrap. We're wrapping episode 230. We are off next week. We'll be back July 15th with another incredible guest. And in the meantime, I want you to be well, be wise, and be whole.